Toronto. After Mark Moore shot a complete stranger on Friday night in September 2010, he texted a friend, "Yeah, busy terrorizing the boroughs. Watch CP." The boroughs referred to Greenbrae Circuit, a neighborhood Moore didn't like, and where he had gone hunting for someone to kill. He spotted 27-year-old Jamil Spence in a laneway and shot him dead. CP referred to Toronto's news channel CP24, where Moore knew his heinous crime would be reported. Today we're going to explore the story of a historical demon from the deadly streets of Toronto. Right now, people are getting to know the realities of North America's fourth largest city through high-profile cases that the mainstream media have covered through Toronto rappers like Pressa, Houdini, and the infamous Top 5. For the most part, people outside of Canada use Drake as their point of reference when talking about the Canadian rap scene. And for the people who are completely out of the loop, or just don't care, they think Toronto is full of polite people saying A and a boot and free healthcare. Now, obviously, their opinions have evolved over the years with the rise of the Toronto rap underground scene with artists like Robin Banks and Smoke Dogg, as well as media coverage from DJ Academics from as early as 2014, as well as YouTube videos from Noisy, Trap Geek, Trap Lord Ross, and hell yeah, even us over at the We Love Hip Hop Network. However, with the gritty street rappers come the gritty and sometimes spooky stories. This is the story of Mark Moore, aka El Presidente, aka a real Toronto serial killer. Now, before we get into this video right here, I want y'all to make sure to hit that like button as well as that subscribe button and put on that notification bell for any new videos that we're going to be dropping on this channel. But let's get into this. El Prezidenteeh, Prezi for short, is currently serving 5 life sentences in prison for the murder of 4 people who the media said have no connection with Prezi, all killed within the space of only 75 days. Before we begin this, I want to send a rest in peace and condolences to the families of Jamil Spence, 27 at the time, Mike James, 23, Courtney Facey, 18, and Carl Cole, 45. Mark Garfield Moore, born in 1980 in Toronto's West End neighborhood of Lawrence Heights, aka Jungle, he also grew up in the Weston Road area, but also frequented the Greenbrae area in Scarborough, where other family members had lived. Born to Jamaican parents, Hyacinth Moore, and estranged father, who was not in the picture, his mother was left alone to raise Mark as well as brothers Andre, Jerome, and Timon. All 4 brothers were notorious in the streets, and in 2009, Mark's brother Timon was shot in the stomach and survived, and his other brother Jerome was arrested after stealing a car and crashing it into a police car. Mark and his family have been on the police radar for years. As a 16-year-old, on November 14, 2001, he took a AK-47 bullet to the face in an apartment building on Weston Road after opening the door to a stranger. The left side of Moore's face was left disfigured by the bullets when he was shot multiple times. Weeks later, plainclothes constable Antonio Marcias was shot in the shoulder nearby an incident which Mark's older brother Andre was a suspect. He was never convicted. Andre Moore was shot dead on October 14, 2008. Kenya Smith, charged with the slaying, testified that Andre Moore was a drug dealer who fired a gun at him during an unsuccessful robbery attempt in the lobby in a Scarborough apartment building. Kenya said at his ongoing trial that he was scared of Andre, aka Tweety, and Mark Moore, aka Sparky, who he had said had a reputation for being crazy. He said in court that he feared if he told police about his run-ins with Andre, Mark Moore would come after him. Tweety was a notorious crack dealer in Jungle with alleged ties to the notorious West End Bloods, and was even caught months later in possession of the gun used to shoot the plainclothes cop Marcias. With a wild family life and his own growing street scars, including the AK-47 shot that left his jaw disfigured and slurring his speech and rapping, Mark Moore, aka Sparky, was getting all the ingredients for a hood serial killer. As a young child, Mark met a young Kevin Williams, who you can see in a class photo together. Kevin was actually a friend of Mark's older brother Andre before his passing, and with both growing up in Jungle, the two made a bond. Kevin Williams grew up to be a popular local Toronto rapper named Mayhem Moriarty, who had a bunch of songs that rang bells in the streets and clubs of Toronto. Mayhem had affiliations with Cardinal Official, with the short-lived The Black Jays Crew, and even had a song on mixtapes with the Sixth God himself, Drake, all before becoming a witness and informant, but we'll get to that later in the story. Moore was also an aspiring rapper who went by the name El Prezidenteeh, or Prezi for short. and dropped an album called Election Year with songs depicting his street stories and even some of the alleged and convicted murders. Prezi's rap career wasn't as budding as Mayhem Moriarty, but Prezi was well respected and feared in the streets. By 2010, Prezi had over 25 criminal convictions, including robbery, drug and firearms offenses, and multiple failed to complies. The two started hanging out again as they got older and more into the streets and music, and that's when things got spooky. In 2011, during a Canadian Music Week showcase where Mayhem Moriarty was performing, El Prezi got so excited that he literally shot up the club by letting shots off at the ceiling. On August 5th, 2010, Prezi shot and wounded a man in the Green Bay area in Scarborough once again. The man testified in Moore's murder trial that a friend of his was in a fist fight with Prezi's younger brother 4 days before. At the time of the shooting, Prezi allegedly pulled up on the man and yelled, "What happened to my brother?" before letting off shots. Wow, too far. To me, the downward spiral started from the first real come up on August 9th, 2010, when Prezi and Moriarty held up A-Rack's jewelry and took over $500,000 worth of items. Surveillance footage captured during the robbery showed a black Audi driven by a woman parked at the back of the store. From here, I'll read you an excerpt courtesy of Betsy Powell and the Toronto Star that states, "The goldsmith had been taking a break, having a cigarette against the door, as Moore ran towards him. The goldsmith tried to shut the door and keep Moore and accomplice Kevin Williams, who had jumped out in the front passenger seat of the car, out. That's when Moore fired the shot. The bullet ricocheted off the door and went through the goldsmith's arm and lodged in his leg. Moore followed the wounded man inside, dragging another employee along with him. In 3 minutes and 16 seconds, Moore and Williams were in the store and scooped up over 200 pieces of jewelry worth about $500,000. The man survived but suffers psychological trauma to this day. His co-worker, while not shot, suffers more significant trauma, the judge noted. I no longer have patience with my co-worker, the jeweler noted in the victim impact statement. I'm always on edge. I suffer from post-traumatic stress, anxiety, and it is still to this day very difficult to come to work without thinking about that day. I have lost all confidence in people and worry that anyone can be a possible threat to me and the store." September 10th, 2010, the first murder was back in the Green Bay area on Jamal Spence, who was shot 8 times, including 3 fatal wounds, 2 to the head, 1 to the chest. After Prezi shot the complete stranger, he texted Moriarty saying, "Yeah, busy terrorizing the boroughs, watch CP." Also based on the Toronto Star article, it states, the Crown suggested the shooting happened because Moore wanted to prove what he had told Williams earlier in a text. His name shakes the streets. Moore also hated the Green Bay area because his young brother had recently been beat up there, the Crown urged. Mark Moore's mom, the then 49-year-old Hyacinth Moore, allegedly assisted her son in the destroying of evidence from the killing of Jamil Spence, as well as the earlier jewelry store robbery. September 29th, 2010, Moore committed a double murder on Courtney Facey and Mike James in the Weston Road area while the two were hanging out by one of their cars listening to music. The shooting took place when Prezi was driving with Mayhem Moriarty in the backseat looking for an open liquor store for more Hennessy for Moriarty's birthday that was the same day. Prezi saw the 2 victims and made a detour and pulled up on the driver's side where he sat and let off shots. According to an article on westonweb.ca, September 29, 2010, Courtney Facey, 18, Mike James, 23, not known to police or Moore, were killed in a Weston Road laneway on September 29, 2010, the night of Williams, aka Mayhem Moriarty's birthday. He knew something bad was going to happen. The shooting occurred opposite to the building where Moore was shot in the face years earlier. Facey's mother, working nearby, heard the commotion and saw her son placed in the ambulance. Ambulance workers told her not to look at her son as he was disfigured by the shooting. According to excerpts from the Toronto Star, key testimony for the Crown came from Williams in the violent jewelry store heist for which both men were serving charges at the time. William testified that he was in the car with Moore on September 29, 2010 and watched him gun down Facey and James in the parking lot on Weston Road for no apparent reason. Cell phone records placed both men in the area at the time of the shooting. Williams said Moore told him the angel of death made him do it. In one of many bizarre moments in the trial, Williams testified that he was upset that Moore had done the shooting on the night of his birthday. The Crown alleged that Moore hated the Weston Road area and that location in particular because it was where he was been shot in the face at 17, leaving the left side of his face disfigured. Earlier that evening, he had become angry about the reference to the Crips, the gang he had said was responsible for the shooting, which was why he drove to the location where he was shot with Williams, the Crown alleged. But the Crown alleged Moore also committed the shooting to further his rap career, cementing his reputation with Williams, his music producer, as a violent gangster. Now, November 24th, 2010, Moore murdered 45-year-old Carl Cole back again to the Greenbrae area in the back of a building. When Prezi pulled up, Cole yelled, "Oh fuck," and ran from Moore as he sent over 29 shots at him. Days after Cole was shot dead, November 24th, 2010, Moore texted Williams, "I got him in Cedar, the dude that robbed us," the Crown alleged, in his reference to Cole, the only one of 4 victims with a connection to Moore based on the phone calls on the day Cole died. Williams also testified Moore told him he'd shot someone in the melon with a .45, the Crown alleged, to his reference to Cole's murder. During the time and crazy crimes and serial murders, Mayhem Moriarty's rap career had reached a high, with interest from record companies, videos that were on Canada's music television network Much Music, and a rumored signing from CP Records, owned by Ottawa rapper and later Rock Nation artist Belly. El Presidente was finally charged with the 4 murders on October 19, 2011, after the findings from Project Summit, but he was already in jail for robbery charges. Prezi was picked up for the jewelry store robbery on October 9th, 2011. Mayhem was notified of the offenses from his cell in the Maplehurst Correctional Facility, where he was awaiting a court appearance on a series of unrelated gun charges. In the interrogation room at Maplehurst, Mayhem admitted to the jewelry store robbery as well as his implication in the 4 murders committed by Mark Moore, aka El Presidente. Now let's get into the trial, and some of this is going to be some excerpts from the Toronto Star as well as some of my own narration. And Moore's trial started almost a year after Jamil Spence was killed. Moore's trial heard that almost a year after Jamil Spence was killed, investigators put out a statement the fall of 2011 saying they were interested in a blue Honda Civic in relation to the crime. The blue Honda was owned by Prezi's girlfriend, Cassandra White, as well as a black BMW X5. The press was said to be a police tactic to get Prezi to make calls from jail to cover his tracks, since he was already picked up for the jewelry store robbery weeks after the string of murders. Moore called White and directed her to get the Honda painted black and change the color details with the Ministry of Transportation, and a conversation was picked up by a wiretap and played at Moore's trial, as well as over 75 other recorded jail calls, including one to Crime Stoppers under the name Christopher Parker, stating that Mark Moore himself was innocent and was actually a nice guy, and he could almost bet his life on it that it was not Mark Moore. All the calls, including the calls to his girlfriend, were played in court during the murder trial. The trial was partially conducted without Prezi present after he tried to represent himself and speak up in court multiple times before he was conducted out of the courtroom. At the first hearing, Prezi and Mayhem were both placed in the same holding cell after being ordered to stay away from each other. During the holding, Prezi assaulted Mayhem, causing skull fractures from the beating when Prezi was jumping from the bench onto Mayhem's head after he was knocked unconscious. November 30th, 2015, a jury convicts White of accessory to murder after the fact, with sentencing scheduled for January 2016. White was an early childhood education student at Seneca College when she was charged in 2011. She spent 28 months in custody following her arrest, but was released on bail by the court appeal in 2014, her lawyer said. At the time, he said she is now in a stable relationship and the mother of a 2-month-old daughter. June 30th, 2015, Moore was found guilty by a jury of 4 counts of first-degree murder. June 16th, 2015, Moore is sentenced to 4 concurrent sentences of life in prison with no parole eligibility for 25 years. The Toronto Star article also states the defense argued Williams' testimony cannot be trusted, pointing out that he got a reduced sentence for the jewelry store robbery because of his cooperation with police, and he hopes to use his assistance to the Crown when he applies for parole. He was also pressured by police to implicate Moore or be charged with murder himself, the defense argued. The defense also suggested that it could just easily have been Williams who shot Facey and James, not Moore. At the end of the trial, the jury listened to most of Moore's debut rap album, Election Year, released under the name El Presidente, which the Crown alleges contains references to the murders in the lyrics. This ain't no fiction, this is what it really is. Moore raps on his track, On My Grind, which he mouthed the words along to as it played in the courtroom. Load up the clip like Lysol, you don't really want to run with the kid no more, fucking up niggas at the corner store, die like Andre, he said on the track, Turn It Up. The Crown argued this refers to a shooting of Facey and James by a corner store in Scarborough, similar to when Moore's older brother Andre was shot dead in 2008. A jury found the shooting was in self-defense. Moore also raps about his 9mm gun and his .45, which has a gold trim and fires bullets with a red center, just like the one used in the Cole murder, the Crown argued. I got golden ones that spit rubies, he said on one track. That's why I keep the 4.5 by my side, A-Tech 9 motherfucker on the other side, he said on another track. Mayhem admits in a TVO documentary that he would have not snitched if he didn't feel cheated from the previously mentioned jewelry store robbery. In March, after the trial begun, Moore refused to come to court, accusing the presiding judge, Superior Court Justice Michael Dambrot, of bias. In a handwritten letter submitted to the court, Moore objected to the murder charges being tried together in one trial as opposed to separately. He also wrote that it is highly prejudicial that Justice Dambrot Googled Moore's name prior to the trial. After Moore attempted to address the jury directly, Dambrot ordered the jury out and Moore to stop. When Moore said he would continue to attempt to address the jury, the trial continued without him present until he chose to return. Moore's mother, Hyacinth Moore, who was present in the courtroom through her son's trial, faces charges of accessory after the fact in relation to the Arax robbery. Hyacinth Moore, one son dead, one son in prison for life with no chance of parole for 25 years, another son doing time, and yet another shot. She raised quite a brood and has her own legal problems. In October 2011, she was charged with conspiracy, being an accessory after the fact of murder, an accessory after a robbery, and obstructing police. In October 2013, the Crown withdrew the charges of accessory after the fact to murder. The then 49-year-old Hyacinth allegedly assisted her son, Mark, in destroying evidence from the killing of Jamil Spence, the first victim, and the earlier jewelry store robbery. But she'd made news even before that. 2 months prior, police executed a search warrant at her McCowan Road apartment as a part of Project Summit. The investigation into the 4 murders, Spence, Facey, James, and Carl Cole, linked by ballistics, the same 9mm used, later recovered in an unrelated raid. Another .45 was also used on Cole, has never been found. Miss Moore told reporters that a half a dozen cops who destroyed her apartment had left behind a loaded shotgun, which she photographed laying on Mark's bed. Never seen it before, she claimed. It was Hyacinth who called 911 asking, "You forget something?" So what do we have here in conclusion? Was this murder for bars or art imitating life? Were these revenge killings or taking it too far? From all the details pulled from numerous articles and podcasts like the Toronto Star and a multitude of articles from Betsy Powell and others, or the fun ladies from the Fruity Loops podcast, all the gory facts of this story can make a motion picture film. Now in 2022, Mark Moore, aka El Presidente, has been serving time now for the past 10 years for the 4 murders, the jewelry store robbery, and the assault on Mayhem Moriarty in the court holding cell. Presidente has popped up online since being sentenced, including there was an article on the website Golden Snitches in August of 2018, but after review, I found out that the article was about the previous story told, where Prezi called from the jail phone under the name Christopher Patrick. They did add a few more funny details that I'll read though. Now here's where the fun part begins. How is he a snitch? Well, while he was in jail, serial killer Mark Moore used the jail phone to call Crime Stoppers anonymously. Basically, he called with the fake name Christopher Patrick, laugh out loud. He then explained how he was a good guy in third person and then even pointed the fingers at 2 fake people using made-up street names, Slinky and Reds. I'm not making this up. Full convo is above. He closed it off by saying how he was concerned about the guy in jail, that guy being himself. Prezi also popped up on a dating website called Love After Lockdown, which we actually covered on an episode of the We Love Hip Hop podcast. Now for Kevin Williams, aka Mayhem Moriarty, he has been in hiding somewhere in Ontario, rumors say, and has not been heard from publicly since the TVO documentary Sort of a Judas, and has not put out music since the mid-2000s. His name is still a hot button issue here in Toronto, to the point that on our podcast, the We Love Hip Hop podcast, we received massive backlash when even kicking around the thought of what a Mayhem Moriarty interview would be like. Now, to be considered a serial killer, one must have murdered 3 or more people. By those standards, a lot of people living in the street life become that after their 3rd retaliation drill. To me, this is the story of a man who was a regular hood demon that developed an insatiable taste for blood based on revenge, PTSD, and childhood trauma that got translated in the worst ways possible. These murders happened 2 years before the introduction of Instagram and years before where we are now, where the demons gotta let you know about the drills ASAP on IG Live and Snapchat. If these events happen now in our streamlined society, built on short-term attention span and hashtags, would it be so shocking? I want to send a rest in peace and condolences to the families once again of Jamil Spence, Mike James, Courtney Facey, and Carl Cole. Rest in power and let's increase the peace in Toronto. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and make sure to share this video, and let us know in the comments below if you like this video here and who else you want to see us cover here on the Real Toronto Stories. Peace.